Good evening. How's everyone doing this evening?
All good, Johnny. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. No complaints.
Doing well, thank you. Happy New Year.
Yeah, happy New Year to you as well. Awesome. We'll give people another minute or two to get in as we step in. We're going to talk about structuring your first or your next deal and building that foundation for success. So, always, we kind of talk a lot of spend a lot of time on like the financing, the defining the deal, but structuring the deal properly is definitely one of those things that you don't want to get wrong, and you want to make sure that you get that right up front. And so that's one of the things that we're going to talk about tonight, and just kind of give you some frameworks for success that you can take and kind of look at what you're aiming to do with your strategy, your preferred strategy, as well as maybe potentially looking at partnerships. What does that look like on your end, and what do you need to be doing to position yourself for success with stepping into your first or next deal? So with that, we'll go ahead and get going tonight. So we're going to talk about the key elements of deal structuring. What does that look like from a single family perspective, but also from a multifamily perspective? Because there are different ways to get deals done. If you've heard the analogy that there's a thousand ways to skin a cat. Same thing with real estate. There's a thousand ways to skin a real estate deal. That you have the infinite option on how you can package the deal, as long as the seller is willing to negotiate and also willing to concede to terms that you can create that'll be a win-win for them. And at the end of the day, that we can come up with an elaborate structure for a deal that works for us, but it's completely worthless if it doesn't work for the seller on the other end of the transaction. And so that's one of the things that we always want to keep top of mind is, what does the seller want? And so that's why we love those conversations where we can go direct to the owner versus having intermediary with our agent or potentially a real estate agent that represents the seller, because now you can get to the root cause of why they're selling, what's their motivation point, what are the pain points that's forcing them to kind of put the deal on the market or to even consider selling it maybe off market. Now, once you're informed and armed with that information, now you can go into your toolkit that you have and structure the deal that now it's a win-win for them, because guess what? You know what? They're motivated. You know what pain point that you need to solve with this deal, with this transaction, and then you know what you need to do and what's the deal for you. Getting the proper return on investment, the cash on cash that you want, getting the purchase price that you want, being able to buy in the neighborhood that you want. And so now you're able to create that win-win deal by being able to have the proper structure. We're going to get into some of the different options that you have. And then, of course, we'll have a couple case studies along the way. For those who haven't met me, I'm Johnny Lynham, kind of husband, father, lieutenant colonel in the Air Force for a few more months before I kind of step into retirement. But I've been investing for a while. I bought my first property using my VA loan back in 2006. And since then, started buying foreclosures every time we PCS and moved. And along the way, my wife and I, we started our own fix and flip business, eventually started buying small apartment complexes, 40 units and below, and wrote a book, started going out speaking. I know next week we're going down to, I'll be speaking at the Military Creators Conference in Orlando. We have the Leaders Vision Summit down at Fort Walton Beach. I'm super excited about that at the end of the month. And we're speaking at the virtually this Saturday at the Locked In conference with the brother of mine, Kelly Cole. We're talking about multifamily investing. So it's just a blessed time. I'm super excited about 2025. It's all about getting out in the streets and helping people become the best CEO of their last name. And that's why we're here today talking about real estate, because I'm a true believer that real estate will change your life if you implement it right. So with that, confidence through clarity, really smart man here, Warren Buffett. He says risk comes from not knowing what you're doing. And he is 100% right. Have you ever tried to do something that you haven't done before? And guess what? That's where that fear creeps in. That's where that imposter syndrome kicks in. And it comes completely from not having a sense of confidence that's based off of knowledge. Because guess what? The more information you have, the more knowledge that you have about what to pick of subjects, whether it's investing in stocks, investing in real estate, uh, it's investing in your driver's license, the training you need to drive. Because guess what? Driving to work every day is risky. But guess what? You got multiple years of driving under your belt. You passed your driver's license test. And the more you do it, that you can almost drive to work and be thinking about something else and don't even remember the cars, the color of the cars that you passed, or what lane you were driving, just because it becomes so routine and conscious. And so now, even though you can swerve 6 inches and hit someone head on and kill yourself, which is high risk, that action has become low risk just because guess what? You have knowledge and you have experience. Real estate is no different. Investing is no different. The more that you apply yourself, the more knowledge, the more skill sets that you're able to build up over time, it lowers your risk of making a mistake in these deals and lowers your risk overall in being able to operate as a real estate investor. And so that's what we're always looking to achieve, is that confidence through clarity, breaking it down, making it simple, because I always say real estate investing is fifth grade math. We're adding, subtracting, we're multiplying, divide. That's it. And once you figure out the location, the zip codes, all the data, that's free data that's out there, where they're building new schools, where the jobs are going, where are people moving from the U.S., where are they flowing into, and you find a property in the right zip code, then hey, we're off to the races. And now we got to figure out, just like, hey, what's the lowest offer price I can pay and still get the return on investment that I want? And now it comes down to negotiating and structuring the deal where we're at tonight. So structure a winning deal. Sample. So we're gonna look at a duplex in Birmingham, Alabama, my old neck of the woods where we used to buy a lot. Looking to actually do more deals in Birmingham now as we kind of go into the refinance we're about to kick off here in Montgomery with our multifamily project there, and just continue to grow. So here, a purchase price $180,000. Yes, you can get a duplex in Birmingham for $180,000, depending on what market you're in. You can't in some areas like DC and Northern Virginia, you may be looking at $700,000-800,000, over $1 million for a duplex. But there are areas down south which we love. There you can get a duplex for $180K. Guess what? If it's your primary residence, you can use a VA loan, 0% down, zero out of pocket. And we're going to talk about some pure investment deals as well too. But on the single family side, you were looking at monthly rent, $900 each unit. The first year you're gonna live in it, so you'll be paying whatever that $900, if you will. But once you move out, you could be collecting $1,800 a month rent. Your expenses are $1,200, mortgage, taxes, insurance, maintenance, and guess what? Now you're making $600 a month cash flow, $300 a door. Now you're able to. This is one of the strategies I love sharing with my young service members, my enlisted guys, even my officers as well too. With being able to go in, use that VA loan, buy your first property, 100% finance it, live in it, live in one of the units. When you PCS and change duty stations, now you can rent the other side out, the other end of the property, and now you become an instant landlord on day one of closing on your first property. And it's a great asset to use. And we'll talk a little bit about it too as well. You have FHA loans, conventional loans as well too, when we start talking about primary residence. And then we're going to transition and talk a little bit about the bridge debt, hard money loans, creative financing with owner financing that we've used on multiple projects with that. And so one of the things that, going through the framework and how do you put these deals together, that my framework that I came up with as I kind of went back and re-looked at deals after deals that we've done, it was the same thing, recurrent process, because I'm a systems guy, I'm an engineer. And so, hey, I'm on my checklist. I want to make sure that we're properly aligned. And we're making it simple where you're not recreating the wheel every time you go and do a new project. And so we came up with this find, finance, fix, finish framework, finding the deals, financing them, fixing them up. And then now we're going to finish however we want to end, whether it's a refinance, whether it's a sale, whether it's, buying partners out, whatever that looks like on the back end. We want to close the deal out and then we want to repeat at the end of the day, because that's what it's all about. That continuous deal flow. And then you re-execute and you're getting right back in there and you continue to build that wealth. And so right now what we're talking about, we're a little bit kind of in between the finance piece where we're getting everything under contract, we're negotiating the deal. We could potentially, once we get under contract now, we're going into our LLC structure, we're talking to our attorney, We're figuring out how we're going to raise the money. That's going to dictate the structure a little bit as well too. And so now we bring those things together in order to get the deal closed. But the thing is, you gotta understand that wherever you are today, that it always starts with that one deal. Like, yeah, you can get to 10, 20, 30, 40 transactions, 40 deals, buying that first multifamily. But the thing that I want each and every one of you to focus on, that, a lot of people, they say, oh man, you've done all these deals, you've done all these transactions. Yeah, but guess what? They all started just one at a time. That over time, that time is your best friend. That you got to just focus on getting that first one done. We call it the law of the first deal. It's amazing how much momentum you build after getting your first deal done. The relationships, the conversations, the confidence that you get. We're talking about the risk, and we saw what Warren Buffett said with his quote. With the risk is there when you don't have confidence, and confidence comes from by doing and taking action and getting the information that you need. And so you're going to be so much more confident after you do that first project, after you go through and refinance that first rental property that you renovated, or you go through and that first property that you fixed and flipped. So the thing is that I want to encourage everybody that it all starts with one deal, that who knows where you'll be 5 years from now if you stay faithful to the process, if you show up, if you execute, and you start taking action on the information. And then why does deal structure matter? Because you need a strong foundation. This sets the foundation for your profitability. I always say you don't make money in real estate when you sell. You make money in real estate when you buy. I'll say that again. You make money in real estate when you buy. Because guess what? If you buy at the wrong price, you're going to have to hold that real estate for a long time before you're going to get in the green, before you're going to get profitable. Because if you look at like individuals that bought in 07, 06 and bought properties at the top of the market, that prices reset. I can remember, friends of mine got out of college, bought a property within Atlanta, and prices tanked. 2010, they had lost 50% of their value, but guess what? They stayed there. 14, 15, they moved, rented it out, kept it, same loan, same interest rate. And, 2023, 2024, they started selling. And guess what? Prices had came back up. Prices had surpassed, a couple years ago, they had surpassed where they were at when they bought in 06. But they had paid the mortgage down each month, a little bit towards principal. They had the tax depreciation that was going on. And over time, guess what? They paid the mortgage down and prices came back up. And so time heals all wounds. But with this, you want to make your money up front when you buy. So that's why it's so important, so critical that we get the pluses and minuses, the multiplication and division right, because it's going to directly impact our profitability long term. One, with the monthly cash on cash return and the profit that we're going to see on the back end. And so it's critical to making sure that we don't overpay for properties when we buy them up front. And we always think about the cash flow. And we're going to talk a little about that and how you can assess and make decisions based off the numbers. And a lot of times you make decisions because the deal structure is directly dependent and drives the cash flow that you're going to be able to achieve up front, but then also looking at the cash flow you're able to achieve later down the road. It mitigates risk and ensures scalability. The thing is that, when you're going in with the proper deal structure, that you always are looking with mitigating your risk. Because guess what? You go in with 100% financing, it's considered a little bit more risky, because guess what? You don't have any skin in the game. You can walk away from the deal and not lose any money. And from a bank's perspective, when they lend you money, that they view that as potentially high risk. But we'll talk about some loan products out there tonight that are in place that are strictly lent on the deal. And if you have a killer deal that's really great, they'll give you 100% of the purchase price and 100% of the renovation money to renovate it and fix it up. Why? Because you have a great deal and you have more than enough equity when they start looking at the after repair value. Tailor to your goals, resources, and market trends. That you got to understand the deal structure, how you're structuring the deal, and how does it align with your goals, the resources that you have at your disposal right now, and the current market trends and the potential market trends, and understanding where you are in the real estate market. Are you in the bottom of the market? Has there been a reset? Are transactions at an all-time low? Is there a oversupply? Or maybe there's no supply? Are builders continue to build? Are you in a high interest rate environment, a low interest rate environment? What's the amount of days on market for properties to sell? All these data points are going to inform your decisions. It's going to inform the current market and where to potentially give you some data points to understand where the market potentially is going in the future, because we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know exactly per se what exactly is going to happen, but we have a good idea and we can plan for the worst case scenario and manage the risk level. Because guess what? Some of us, you know, if we're in our 20s and 30s, we may be a little bit more aggressive than someone that may be in their 50s or 60s. And that's okay. But we got to be true to ourselves and understand what our risk tolerance is and make sure we don't fall in love with deals and we don't lose our mind when we get an opportunity and forget about our risk tolerance, what our long-term goals are, just to get a deal done, because that's the last thing that we want to do. This triangle here, it represents balance. One thing that you have to balance between property, the strategy, and then just the overall market that we're buying into. You have to stay in balance with all those things because each one has a weight. You know, sometimes, you know, you may give a little bit here or there, but in all, you want to stay within balance. Whereas that you're staying true to your market. That if you say, hey, I want to buy in a zip code that's between $40,000 and $70,000 median household median income, then maybe you shouldn't. Is it okay to waiver that for maybe, hey, I got a property that's $35,000 median income in this area that's a little bit more crime ridden? I don't know. Is that going to allow you now looking at, are you willing to modify your strategy and your approach for the right property, maybe not in the best of areas? I don't know. And that's the thing, you have to take those into account that, you know, once you have the box, that sometimes you look at all the different variables and, hey, it may be a little bit more risky, but guess what? They're building a new Publix across the street, or they're building a new high school that's going to be here 2-3 years from now. So is it okay to buy in this area because they're gentrifying, because they're improving? You're seeing other flippers that are buying properties and renovating them on the same street. Even though there was crime here last year, you know, things are on the up and up. And so that's the thing that you kind of have to balance the two and understand the market. How's it repositioning? Are you on the front end of some improvements that are happening? And then, hey, does that align with your strategy? And then is this the right property for you to leverage that trend in that area? Because not all properties are the same. Every deal is going to be different. Every deal is unique. Every property has a story and a history and the more information that you're able to get. But you want to make sure you have the right property for your goals. Then we're going to talk about the market, the location, the economic trends. We talked about those things. All that matters. And then your strategy. You want to align with your financing and your goals long term. Because if you're like, hey, I'm going in, I'm buying this property, it doesn't need any renovation, I want to keep it forever, then you probably shouldn't go and get a 1-year bridge loan. You should probably be looking for long-term financing. But if you're looking to going into a property like, hey, it needs about $50,000 worth of work, I want to make the renovations in 3 months, and then I'm going to refinance and keep it, then yeah, you could do a 1-year bridge loan because that aligns with your goals, that aligns with your strategy. Kind of short term, you're going to go in, you get the capital, make the improvements, you're going to appreciate, you're going to force appreciation in the value of it now because it's completely renovated to 2025 standards, and now you're going to refinance it. So that financing fits your strategy for that property. And so now, you know, you're looking at the different elements. When you start talking about the financing, we talk a little bit about using the example with the bridge debt. You have the different loans, you can use cash, you can bring other investors in and have partnerships. You know, whether it's limited partners where they just bring the capital and they don't participate in the decision making with the day-to-day operations, or you can have partnerships with other investors that are active in the day-to-day operations, and you guys work out some type of split in regards to the equity ownership. With that, with the ownership, you have different ways of setting that up from a LLC perspective. That, you know, you could be a solo 100% owner of your fix and flip business. You know, you may buy an apartment. You know, I bought my first apartment that it was 3 of us. You know, I own 77%. One of my partners own 18%. The other one owns 5%. And we just kind of based I gave up equity because it was my deal based off how much money they contributed or themselves or raised. And so the one with 18%, he ended up he brought in $40K and raised another $35,000. And my other college buddy put in $20K and I gave him 5% ownership. And we put it together. We used the financing. We used a local credit union there in Panama City that I had a relationship with. We got an 80% loan to value, had to put 20% down. And so they were fine with me bringing, as long as I brought at least 5% of the down payment, they didn't care how I came up with the other 15%. And so they were fine with me raising the money or having a couple partners that came in. As long as they were below 20% ownership, they didn't have to sign on the loan. They weren't responsible for any agreements with the debt, which was fine. And so that's one of the ways that you can go through with a joint venture. Syndication is a little bit different. That you see this is as a vehicle that is used for more expensive properties. A great example of a syndication that everyone probably is familiar with, which they probably didn't know that it actually was a syndication, was the purchase and the development of the Empire State Building. That way back then, I think the syndication, that the buy-in to be a partner in that deal was $10,000. And so all the syndication is multiple individuals coming together and contributing capital for a single purpose that the company is being built for. And so in this case, they were building the Empire State Building. And guess what? They rented out rooms to, offices to companies that paid rent. They collected a lot of rent because they got a lot of floors and a lot of real estate, excess space. And so the owners, after paying the expenses, were left with the returns, the cash flow. And so they got a return on their money that they was investing. And so the syndication is the same thing today with buying larger apartments or buying commercial spaces, retail offices, that now you bring in limited partners who contribute capital to the deal. And they're limited in the partnership as in regards to, if something were to happen, the property went into foreclosure, their losses would be limited to only what they contributed to the deal. So they wouldn't be responsible for the $100 million that needed to be raised, that they'll be only responsible for their 100K that they contribute or their 50K. And so the limited partners, they're limited in the liability, but they're also limited in the day-to-day operations as well too. And so on the other side of that, you have the general partners who are the operators, who are the day-to-day managers, the asset managers that are executing the business plan for the property. They're working with the day-to-day property managers that are on site and working with the staff and executing the business plan. They may buy a 100-unit apartment complex and say, hey, we're going to renovate all 100 units over the next 5 years, 20 units each year. And as we do that, we're going to increase rent $300 per unit, which is going to drive an increase in the appreciation of the building. And after the 5 years, we're going to sell the property or we're going to refinance the property. And for the equity or the profit that we make, we're going to return investors a 7% return on their money every year. And then on top of that, they're going to have an ownership stake. So if we raise $10 million for their purchase price, they're going to own maybe 70% equity in the deal. And so they're going to get a return on their ownership as well as the cash flow based off the annual return. And so that's how these syndications are structured. You get your monthly or cash flow that's paid out usually quarterly, but then also you get paid off your equity as well too, because once you pay out that baseline, say 7%, there may be another 5% of cash flow that's left over. If the operations are running really, really good, that excess cash may be split between the general partners and the limited partners, maybe 50-50, or based off the ownership percentages, that you'll see that extra cash be flowed out. And so that's kind of syndication. Just remember that you got general partners and limited partners, and the limited partners are limited in liability, but they're also limited in hand-to-hand involvement in the day-to-day operations. And then your exit strategy, you can hold a property, you can flip it, go ahead and sell it, or you can refinance it if you have like short-term debt for the property and refinance it into more long-term financing. And speaking of financing, kind of going into the different options, for those, and I always like to, throw in some of the conventional like primary residence loans out here because they always are options. Usually they're going to have lower interest rates. Traditionally conventional loans have been 20% down. Even for normal investment properties using a conventional loan, the bank is going to maybe want 20 or 25% down for the down payment. But one of the cool things, I think they passed it a couple years ago, that now you can buy up to a 4-unit with a conventional loan with only 5% down. So you traditionally was 20%, but now you can actually get a conventional loan on a multi-unit up to 4 units, which is still considered residential, with as little as 5% down. The FHA loan is one of the most widely used low down payment loans One of the drawbacks, though, you do have the private mortgage insurance that's associated with that, but you can get into a 1, 2, 3, or 4 unit property as your primary residence for only 3.5% down for first time buyers. You had a VA loan, of course. We talk about this all the time with 0% down with veterans and I'm actually share opportunity that one of my clients that actually got to buy a $1 million property using their VA loan with no money out of pocket. And we'll talk a bit about that deal. Hard money bridge. I'll talk a little bit about this. So I've had hard money bridge loans. When you think about hard money, usually it's going to be a little bit higher interest rate because it's a little bit higher risk than a conventional mortgage. Because guess what? You can get a lower interest rate for a conventional loan, VA loans, because you're living in it. You got a job. They're going to underwrite you as the borrower. But when you start looking at hard money and bridge loans for real estate, that they're strictly looking at the asset, the property. And so if you are a new home flipper, then yeah, they may charge you a little bit more points on your closing costs and a higher interest rate just because you could fumble and walk out the property and don't know what you're doing and get in over your head. And that puts their money at risk. And so now with you not living in the property and then not being back, and they're looking at your debt to income ratio and how much you bring home every month in their payment, that now they can give you a lower interest rate because it's a higher likelihood you're going to be able to pay it versus a hard money bridge loan, which is strictly tied to the property. You may not be an experienced renovator and anything can happen. You can have contractors come in and fall and sue you or anything that can happen. And so now it's a little bit risk. You're going to pay a higher interest rate for a higher risk with that. And I've seen, hard money lenders from 0% down to some that want as much as 30% down. So it just kind of depends on the loan, your experience. And I always say shop around. There are a ton of hard money lenders compared to what it was when I started fixing and flipping homes in 2015. Now that you have an unlimited amount of private lenders out there, hard money bridge loans out there as well too. And so definitely I always say you want to have at least 2 or 3 lenders in your back pocket. And if you're doing projects in a certain area, you always want to be connected with a local credit union or a local community bank. They are your friend. And I had my 18 unit in Panama City on the market. I was talking with a guy and he had asked for some information about it. And then we started talking. I told him we was talking about my loan. Like, yeah, with innovation. It's like, yeah, so yeah, I talked to the business development guy. I was looking at another property in Marietta, Florida. And I got a quote for a rate there. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to reach out to him and see if he'll let me take on your loan and do those things. But, you want to have those community banks because they have the partnerships where they want to invest in the local community. They work with investors. And once you get out here and you start buying properties and talk with other investors, it's a small community. It is a very small community. And that's how deals get done, through relationships. And creative financing, I really love this one, seller financing, lease options, subject to where you buy property, subject to kind of what I just talked about, where you can buy a property subject to the existing debt, where you take on someone's debt that they have in place and they don't pay off their loan when you buy it. You keep their existing loan and you may pay them money out of pocket up front and just kind of keep it moving and keep it going. And so you definitely, with most of the loans on the commercial side are assumable by other investors that can take on and buy the debt. The banks are fine with that. Whereas that it's not, they usually have a clause in there that kind of stops it for residential, especially when you have primary residence loans that you can run into where they have the clauses where the loans can't be assumed. But one of the things that with the conventional, that 75% real estate investors use conventional loans when you start looking at the different properties out here, because it allows you to get a long-term amortization. So usually 30 years amortization and 30-year term as well too. And so that's why a lot of investors choose the conventional loans. And it was funny. I was talking with a guy today, had heard me on a podcast, him and his partner, and they're from Canada. And we were just talking about the real estate market in Canada and the deal structure. And right now they invest in Southeast Florida is their preferred market. And they were just talking about a lot of the challenges. For those that don't know, in Canada, like the average single family home there is like over $1 million. It's crazy. And he was just talking about the taxes they have to pay. And like right now, anything over, he said anything over $149,000 income, they have to pay 50% taxes on, which is just insane. thing. I think it was from 49,000 to 149,000, like a 33, 35% tax bracket. But anything over 150K, you're paying the government 50% of your income, and which is just insane. And even for them, if they bring profit back from the US from what they're doing here with their properties, that once they hit 150K, that hey, they got to pay the taxes on their money as well too. And so it's just definitely eye-opening with the opportunities that we have here, with the depreciation that comes as real estate investors, with these deals that we are definitely blessed. And when you look at other foreign countries and the tax laws and the challenges that they have with real estate and the impact of like inflation and things like that, that we really have some good opportunities to take advantage of long term as investors. Pam said crossing Canada off the list. Yes, definitely. So you definitely want to cross Canada off the list. I was like, yeah, I see why you guys are investing in Florida, because that's tough. Some of the different ownership structure, we got sole proprietorship, full control, full liability. Most of the times, I'll tell you, you don't want to file like, I guess as a part, you want to still incorporate as an LLC. But if you're doing it solo, guess what? You're full control, full liability. If your loans are not non-recourse, which means that if they're non-recourse, they can't come after you if something happens or you foreclose. They can't come after your assets personally. I'll tell you, like with the community banks, not commercial, but community banks and credit unions, that most of the time they're going to request you to sign as the guarantor to guarantee the loan for them. And with that, a lot of it, they keep their loans on their books internally. They don't sell their loans on Wall Street and kind of package them up. They keep them internally, and so they have a little bit more leniency with their underwriting rules. They work by committee. If you know somebody on the committee, your business development guy, you got a good relationship, then hey, things should go smoothly. You want to understand what they're underwriting for and make sure it's a solid deal. But a lot of it's based off relationship. And so with that, you just want to know with the sole proprietorship that, hey, you're full control, full liability. LLC protects personal assets. If you start commingling your personal money and your business things, that veil can kind of get pierced where it can flow onto the personal side. So I encourage you to kind of keep everything separate from a business perspective. Use your business account and use it for business. And that way, if something happens, somebody slips and fall at your property, I encourage you should have liability insurance, have that umbrella insurance policy as well, on top of your not your residential, but for your property insurance that you want to have an umbrella insurance policy that kicks in case everything for your coverage is exhausted. That umbrella kind of steps in and fills the gap if you need additional coverage. From there, and they actually have the funding in place to pay your attorney and all that stuff, legal fees and all that. So it's definitely worthwhile. And you want to make sure too, that's one of the things that with having a property management company, because they usually have somebody on retainer when it comes to like evictions, also for like lawsuits. I've been sued before for someone that said I discriminated against them because they didn't pay for their rent, and the property management company evicted them. And when we didn't even charge them any late fees for like 2 months in a row, that we discriminated against them. And just so happened they were African American, I was African American. Like, how am I discriminating against you? I'm like, what are you talking about? And but guess what? My property management company, they took care of all that, the legal challenges with all that. And it was interesting that you have somebody that's a pissed off tenant that's calling your commander when you're in UPCS, you're 2 months on station, and then they got somebody from Florida call and say, yep, this major lineup and this, that, and another, and he had us moved out of the unit and everything. And it was definitely an interesting time. But it was really cool to see the property management having the attorneys, the team. They were the ones going to court. I didn't have to bother any of that stuff, and they got it all done. And a little bit stressful, but that's part of what comes. It comes with the territory that 15, 16 years of investing. And guess what? Yeah, you've had that one suit that came against you that somebody got pissed that you evicted them. But that's the thing where we have we have properties in the right areas where you can, if someone's not paying and they're not upholding their part of the lease, that you can evict them and have them out, compared to a lot of states where that's not the case, that they can stay there for 2-3 years before you can ask, before they have to move and don't have to pay you for 2 or 3 years. And so that's the thing that you want to take that into account too when you talk about location, is understanding the tenant and the landlord laws for the areas that you're choosing to invest in too, because that's super important with just your rights and your ability to do that. Because guess what? If you have 5 or 6 of those going on and you're not getting paid any income for 5 or 6 units in a 8-unit property for 3 years, how you making your mortgage payment? You got to have some cash coming in from somewhere, so it can get really, really sticky really quick. And so that's something you want to always have in mind with the LLC is just protecting your personal assets and just everything that you're building with the whole reason of why you're investing. Partnerships, shared investment, and profits. We're going to talk about some of the pros and cons with the partnerships. But guess what? You share the risk, you share the profit, you share the ownership is the big takeaway with the partnerships. And 87% of real estate investors prefer LLCs for liability protection. There's a lot of law as well as court cases that support the laws for LLCs. They're not as significant from a historical perspective with like the S corps and C corps, which have been around forever. LLCs are fairly young, and so you still see a lot of litigation and preferences and laws and kind of positions on certain what laws mean when it comes to LLCs that are taking place out there. But it is the preferred holding entity for most real estate transactions. And like when you start talking about like commercial deals, hard money loans, bridge loans, even for like a single family house, those are, when you use a bridge lender or a hard money loan, those loans are considered commercial loans, even though it's a single family home, just because it's not considered your primary residence, and it allows them to not necessarily circumvent, but they're not beholden to the same laws that mortgage companies are that are lending to someone for their primary residence. There was a lot of new rules with the Dodd-Frank Act after 2008 when we had the big subprime wave, where you had a lot of individuals where like almost 50% of Americans had adjustable rate mortgages. And so they brought in a lot of laws and change. And that's one of the things we're going to look at with the new administration to see what is going to change in regards to the laws that they're beholden to in regards to mortgages and how they do their lending practices, because there was a lot that came in under the Obama administration that changed that. With a lot of reporting, you talk about a lot of the underwriting and the pain that goes to when you buy a property, but a lot of that is due to the laws and the restrictions that lenders have and the audits that they have to go through and underwrite your file with a fine-tooth comb, because guess what? They can get fined if they don't have all the paperwork and all the documents set to the side when they get audited. And so with the commercial loans lending to LLC, that they're not beholden to a lot of those different rules and regulations that primary residence lenders are. And so that's why most of them require you to have an LLC they lend to. You want to know what your return on investment is. So on average, return on investment for fix and flip properties, anywhere 20 to 25% of the after repair value. So hey, if you got a $200,000 property, then you're going to be looking at somewhere around 40K, 40 to 50K in regards to what your return on investment is going to be on that. When you look at the cash flow, that this one has gone down. I would say as rates have gone up, that you definitely see individuals looking at a lower amount of cash per door. When you start looking at how much cash flow that you have coming in per door, that traditionally you want to be somewhere $250 to $500 per month. But what have you seen, even, and we're going to talk about the one case study that I'm going to share with you with a multifamily, that sometimes it's okay to be at $100. I wouldn't say you want to be negative, but if you're going to be negative, I would say you want to have a plan to get out of the negative. If you're going to have a value add, where it's like, hey, if I'm going to be not making $100, I'll be negative $100 a month for my 10 unit, but I'm buying it. I got 5 units that need to be remodeled immediately. We're going to go in, we're going to turn those 5 units over the next 45 days, and we'll start leasing those up at market rent. After we lease 2 of them, we're going to be positive cash flow. That's okay. And so that's the thing. You want to look at the full deal and understand how long are you going to be negative? Are you just sitting waiting for appreciation to happen, or over time, which is more so gambling and speculation, I believe, my philosophy, or are you able to go in and force appreciation by making renovations, making improvements to the property in a short amount of time, and then you're able to improve the cash flow. And we're going to talk about one of the case studies that kind of highlights that process. And then, of course, tax benefits, tax benefits, tax benefits. We love the tax benefits, especially when we start talking about commercial multifamily with the bonus depreciation. It's continuing to phase out. 2024 was at 60%. I think this year is 40%, and I think it phases out after this year back to zero. But that is one of the benefits that Donald Trump rolled out back in 2017. So I know a lot of investors are curious to see if they re-implement the bonus depreciation, because that brought a lot of investor capital back into real estate. And all this is saying any components of the property that are depreciated at 5 years, 7.5 years, or 15 years, you can take all that depreciation that would be phased over those time frames. You can pull it all forward and take it all in year one. And so now you're able to take all that depreciation in year one versus waiting that time frame forward. And so it's a huge bonus. I think like on our property, my first multifamily, we bought it for $1,050,000, and I think our bonus depreciation, we were able to write off a total of almost $300,000 that first year, a $300,000 loss. And guess what? If you don't use that loss the first year, you can apply it to the second year, third year until it's taken down. And so essentially, when you look at the cash flow coming for the property, you're not paying any capital gains tax on the cash flow from the property for easily 5-6 years before you burn out that bonus depreciation that you have. So you're not having to pay taxes on any of that income generated the first 5 or 6 years from the property, which is a great benefit. Crafting your exit strategy. So now it's really about figuring out, hey, am I a long-term holder? I'm holding for cash flow appreciation. Maybe I'm going to flip it and sell it for risk. Maybe I'm going to do both. And maybe I'm going to keep it as a rental property, but I'm going to go in and rehab it. And instead of flipping it, I'm going to keep it. Maybe I'm going to do this every other deal. Maybe I'm going to do it every 3-4 deals. I'm going to keep one as a rental, then flip it, get some more capital, and continue to grow the business. And so it's not a one size fits all. You know, it depends on what your strategy is. You can do a little bit where like, hey, I want to be a long-term investor, but I don't have a lot of capital to go buy 5 or 6 rental properties all today. It's like, hey, I'm going to flip a house, take it and take my profit, then I'm going to put that away and go buy another rental property. Or maybe I'm going to look at just doing birds, where I'm going to just buy it, rehab it, rent it out, refinance into long-term debt, and then I'm going to repeat and go find another one and do it just one by one. And so you can kind of do all the above or just pick one that you love doing. But one of the great things that I like to share is always that people don't realize, like we always get caught up in like the prices today. But I love to look at like the historical. And when you look at it, that looking back all the way back to 87, which is coming up a couple more years, be 40 years, that in the United States, the national appreciation rate is a little bit less than 5%, 4.8%. So guess what? If you buy $1 million property today, 10 years from now, 50%, pretty much 50% appreciation, it's going to be worth 1.5 million. So if you go buy a $5 million apartment complex in 20 years, guess what? It's going to be worth 10 million. It's going to double. So essentially, at the same time, it's going to double in value, but you're paying down your mortgage each month. Your residents are paying down your mortgage. You're getting the cash flow from it each month along the way. You're getting all that. We talked about the depreciation that you get. And guess what? 2 years from now, you can refinance it and pull money out tax-free. And I tell that, my first deal, we bought it for $1,050,000, but guess what? It appraised for $760,000, 1.76 million 2 years later. So guess what? We were able to refinance at a 4% rate and pull out a little bit over $300,000 tax-free in 2 years. And guess what? It's still cash flows, paying $5,000 a month. And now you take that money and you go buy other assets with it and continue to grow it. And guess what? And with the inflation, the Federal Reserve said they want to keep inflation at 2%. So guess what? In 10 years, guess what? It's going to take 20% more of these same $1 bills, these same dollars, the U.S. Treasury dollar bills. It's going to take 20% more in 10 years from now to buy that same asset just because of inflation, because the money is worth less. If you look at it, what a dollar could buy in regards to gasoline, to bread, or Coca-Cola, or anything. You look back over the last 10, 20 years on what the power of the dollar that is continuing to erode. And so that's one of the things that we love about inflation, because guess what? If the Fed keeps inflation at 2% and your real estate appreciates at 4.8% every year, you're beating inflation. You're still having your buying power, because guess what? When inflation is going up, usually rents are, guess what? They're going up. And so guess what? That means more cash flow coming into you. And at the same time, when you look at it, that you're positioning yourself long term with the property, where now you're paying down your property with dollars in the future that are worth less. You're locking your debt in today, your value of your property, because right now the bank's going to give you 80% of that purchase price. But 10 years from now, when that property's, we just talked about, that property's going up 50% in value, guess what? You get that 50% appreciation. The bank doesn't. They just have that loan today. They're looking at today's value. All that appreciation on the front end goes to you as the owner with the equity that you're going to have in that deal. And so that's one of the things when you look at like the wealthy, what they'll do, that once you get to the point you have 5 apartment complexes, and you look at the where the rates and everything is, that almost like how you can use with like a bond ladder or a CD ladder, where you stagger it, where one matures each year, that you could essentially have one deal with the right interest rate environment where you could refinance one deal, pull out $200K tax free. Next year, hey, I'm gonna take my 20 unit over here, I'm gonna refinance it, I'm gonna pull out $200K tax free. And the next year, I'm gonna take my other 15 unit over here, I'm gonna refinance this one this time and refinance it and take out $200K or whatever it is, tax free. And so now you start looking at it, that these assets that you own, you take some money out, refinance it tax free, you can live off of it, you can invest it, and then you just continue to own. It's cash flowing, paying down the mortgage debt. And guess what? 5 more years, 7.5 more years, when the right interest rate environment comes up, it's going up in value again. You can tap into that first one again and go through like, hey, well, it's a good time to refinance this one. Or maybe you refinance all of them and you have a lump sum of money that's tax free. And so that's the kind of strategies when you start looking at the appreciation and how you can beat inflation, the tax advantages. This is how you build wealth, by keeping more money in your pocket, buying assets that produce cash flow, that are a great hedge against inflation. So guess what? As the dollar becomes more and more worthless, it's going to take more and more of those worthless dollars to buy the asset that you own. And so that's how we see right now that when we printed all these trillions of dollars during COVID, that guess what? We saw real estate do. It shot up. It appreciated. We've seen over 40% appreciation over just over 4 years. And all that was, and that's why you saw hedge funds and Wall Street start buying single family real estate, because they already knew what was going to happen. That this free money is out here, this cheap money, that guess what? Real estate is going to appreciate. You got to be in those assets in order to protect your wealth. And so that's what we're seeing right now. Real estate continues to go up. I think we're going to be here for a minute when we start seeing these tariffs, which historically are more inflationary, that if inflation goes back up, guess what? Rent prices are going to be going up, because guess what? More people are choosing to rent right now. We're going to become a renter nation because people can't afford to buy at a 7% rate and purchase their home. So they're choosing to rent. And so guess what? If you're a landlord and we're not building a whole lot of affordable housing, and if you have affordable housing, guess what? There's going to be more demand for those units, which forces the price for rent to go up over time. And so that's kind of where we are right now in position. And I'm a true believer, as more and more baby boomers choose to retire, stop self-managing these properties, there are going to be great opportunities to create win-win seller financing deals, great opportunities to put these deals together that can position you, because I'm a true believer, and I'm a walking, living witness that one commercial deal can change your life. When I just talked about being able to take the money, refinance it, then go buy 3 more complexes, that you do that one time. You don't have to do it multiple times. That you can do. You don't have to go and flip 10 houses a year to make 300, 400K, and then turn around and have to go do the same thing next year. That you can buy one property that can pay you $5,000, $6,000 a month. And if you're military, my veterans, you're retired, you got your disability, then you got an extra 5, 6K coming in from a property. What else are we talking about? If you can't live off that and figure it out, you got a spending problem. And so that's the opportunity and the potential that we all have with commercial real estate. Whereas that now we can look at, hey, we want to do one multifamily deal a year, or maybe one multifamily deal every 2 or 3 years. And for me, what I've seen is like now you don't have to be as aggressive. You get that first deal, that second deal. Now your investment strategy changes because guess what? You don't have to take a lot of risks. You don't have to do complete remodels. You can go in and have a more conservative approach to the deals that you choose to do just because you already have a nice nest egg, you already have your portfolio stabilized. Now you just continue to grow and you can minimize the headaches that you have to deal with and the type of risk that you have to take on as an investor. So structuring a winning deal, we're gonna talk about my 24 unit. We bought this one back in Montgomery in fourth quarter of 22, back in November of 22. And so purchase price was 55,000 a door, which worked out as 1.32 million, which, you know, going in that we ended up at 55,000 a door because we used a hard money bridge lender to buy his 12 unit. And he said, hey, if you buy this at 55,000 a door outright, I'll owner finance my other units for you, 100% owner financing for you. And so we said, guess what? As the young folks say less. We're going to do it. We're going to make it happen. And so we ended up 100% owner financing. It was a 3-year term, 8% interest rate. And we actually got money back at closing. We're talking, now think about this, how you can't even conceive, like the thing is, like I tell people, it's like, you got to get in the arena, you got to get on the court, you got to start taking shots and just know good stuff is going to happen because you can't even dream some of these things up. So we go in, we're talking with an owner. And in this case, we had the 40 unit under contract. The other owner knew we were buying it. They shared property management. And he said, hey, I want to sell too. If you buy this 12 unit for 55K a door, if you give me 55,000 for this other building, I'll own financing for 3 years. And we're not talking about some 1960s, 1970s rundown apartment complex. We're talking about brick 2-story built in 1998, 2-story buildings that he sold us 24 units at 100% owner financing. When we going in, another thing was like, if you don't have a lender and a bank, guess what? All those fees that you pay closing costs, you don't have to pay all those things. I think our closing costs were like $5-6K. And so when he handed over like the $5,000 of deposit for security deposits for the tenants, and then the actual prorated rent, I think we closed the middle of the month. So we got half a month's rent that was collected as well to a closing. We ended up getting a check cut to us for $6,815. So we buy a 24 unit apartment building and they give you a check for $6,815 at closing. How cool is that? So this is kind of where we talked about the cash flow, the amount of cash flow you get per unit, and is it low enough? Is the return on investment high enough? And so this is the one where it's subjective. And so one of the things that you look at doing is like the monthly payment for that 8% rate was $8,800. So essentially $366 per unit. When you start looking at the rent collected, so one of the things with it, this property was built as a low income tax credit program. So they had like no taxes they had to pay because they catered to low income for the individuals that lived at the property. And so with that, the property was coming out the program and the market rent was not being charged. And so they were getting around $610 per unit for all units were 2 bedroom, 1 bath. And so the total rent was $14,640. And we know we got to pay our mortgage of $8,800. But the upside, because market rent in this area is $925, so a little bit over $300 increase in rent. And so with that rent increase, now you're able to achieve $22,200. So almost over a little bit over almost an $8,000 increase in rent. So that difference in the monthly rent, when you multiply it by 12 and you divide it by the cap rate for the area, 0.065, because 6.5% cap rate, that you're able to improve the value of this apartment complex by $1.39 million. So you're able to improve the value of the apartment by $1.4 million by going in, renovating units, by going in and bringing up to market rent. So the cool thing, I won't say necessarily the cool thing because it's the challenging thing, I'll say is a better word, that the expenses. So you got your mortgage payment, cool, we can pay our mortgage, but your expenses. So when you look at the taxes, the insurance, the utilities, and the maintenance, now that adds up to $4,400. So now our cash flow for our 24 unit, we're only making $1,400 a month in cash flow. So that's tight. That's really tight. And the thing is with this, like, oh, is that a good deal? Well, it's like, okay, well, we put no money down in this deal. We're making $1,440 a month cash flow, but the upside is where the deal is really good. We didn't have to get into the deal with money. Now all we have to do is, one, we got to make sure we have our renovation capital, and now renovate the units, rent them out, and now we increase the cash flow tremendously up to $9,000 a month when we're able to achieve that $925 monthly rent. And so that's the thing that going in that you want to look at is like, okay, how's the upside? How can we impact the upside? And so one of the things that I always tell people, you want to have reserves. You want to have reserves. You want to have reserves. Whereas that, hey, because anything, like HVAC can go out to cost you $4,000, $5,000. Guess what? Now you're going to be cash flow negative. That's going to eat up cash flow for 4 or 5 months. And so now you want to make sure you have more than enough cash reserves on side. Whereas that if you had those dips in cash flow, or you go in and you got to go in and make extra, all the flooring is wet and moist. You had to go in and replace all the decking for the flooring or whatever it may be, that you have more than enough reserves to weather the storm to do that, to get there on the back end and set that up. And so that's one of the things that you look at. It's like, oh yeah, we should be making more than $1,440 a month, but it's great upside potential with appreciation and value and being able to get that monthly cash flow that makes the deal worthwhile. So being able to go in high leverage impacts the cash flow. You don't have as much cash flow, but with this deal, we had great upside to get it. So some of the common deal structure mistakes: over leveraging without a cash reserve. I kind of talked about that one. Don't do that. You want to have cash reserves. Ignoring market conditions. You want to understand where the market is. You want to look at history. You understand where we at in the market cycle and where are we going, and how should you position your deal based off the information that you have. Lack of clarity on goals. You want to make sure that all this is lining up with what you're trying to do, what you're trying to build, and with your long-term goals. And making sure that we have that, we're crystal clear, allows us to move with speed and being able to make no-go and go decisions on what we're doing. Some of the common deal structure mistakes: not having a company operating agreement. If you're looking at, we're already defined, hey, if you're doing a commercial property, you're going to have an LLC. If you're going to have partners, if you're not going to have partners, that even your bank is going to want to see your operating agreement. They want to know, how are you managing as a sole member LLC, or are you a manager member, or you want to know those details. They're going to ask for your operating agreement anyway. But if you're investing with partners, that one, vet your partners. I was listening to a podcast with Tony Robbins that he was talking about a deal where he went into a business deal and he didn't vet everybody in the deal. He vetted the one guy that brought him in who was working with Amway, and he didn't vet the other guy. And so come to find out, everything wasn't properly aligned, and he ended up losing like $125 million. And one of the things that he said, like, hey, he hires private investigators to follow everybody that he partners with, that he does due diligence, and he encourages them to do due diligence. And I encourage you guys, do due diligence on whoever you invest with, and you want to have everything laid out in the operating agreement when everything's up front, when everybody's on good speaking terms, before someone maybe gets divorced, someone passes away. You want to have an operating agreement, what happens when those things happen. So you definitely want to protect your interests with having that. So always have an operating agreement and have your attorney review it. Not vetting on partners before the deal, just talked about that one. Definitely that you want to vet the individuals. It's not personal, it's business. Having too many properties in one LLC, you want to be overexposed for your company. If you're going to, some people say, hey, have one LLC for one property, but maybe it may be excessive with all the fees that you have to pay for the checking accounts, with paying taxes, with the tax filing and the charges for that. You may want to do maybe 2 or 3, but you definitely want to have 20 properties all in one LLC, because you're overly exposed. If somebody slips and falls and sues you and that company for that, now all your properties are tied up in litigation. And so you want to figure out what the right number is, but definitely talk with a your tax professional with your attorney on how you should structure that. This is a cool deal. I love highlighting successes. This one here with the Destins that they last year bought a property, a 4-unit property built in 2023. As you can see, it's not your traditional 4-unit that you had 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, you had 1-car garage for every unit, and it was completely decked out, granite countertops. And they ended up buying this using their VA loan, over $1 million property using their VA loan. They paid, I think it was like $10K in closing costs, 100% financing. And the market rent for these units is $2,100. And I think right now they're getting like $2,000 per unit, the 3 units, and then they're living in one. And so they're bringing in $6,000 of monthly cash flow, and they're living in a unit, they're paying their mortgage, and they had enough land from the developer, because the developer still owned it, that to build 6 more units on the lots. And so this was a complete home run deal in an area where they live in a nice home, and they're able to buy this property that they can actually develop more units on. So definitely I love to shout out Jahil and his wife, Natalie, that they did a phenomenal job tapping in, trusting the process, getting out here, making offers. This deal didn't happen overnight, but they were persistent. They worked and negotiated with the owner, and they put the deal together. And it was a phenomenal deal after going in and looking at what came with it, the land, just where market rents are, and then they are definitely positioned themselves and their family to build long-term wealth with what they're doing. So salute to them. But it's all about the deal structure. So as we wrap up, we're right a little bit over the hour. Think about how do you want to, what is the right strategy on how you want to put together your next deal? What type do you want to look at financing, doing bridge debt for what you're doing with maybe a fix and flip? Do you want to go you look at working with your credit union and maybe do like a conventional loan type of structure? But then also think about some of the tax saving strategy. We can do a little research and look at like the benefits of how you're going to be taxed as a fix and flip, because you own that less than a year. It is considered ordinary income with that. So essentially it's going to be taxed just like you were working your normal W-2 job. But if you own real estate for longer than a year, then now you're getting into the investment where you're getting those passive losses and you're not being taxed as ordinary income. So research and look and see, hey, what are some of the tax saving strategies that you want to look at leveraging with your real estate investment? But then also I encourage you guys to continue to stay active in the Facebook group and share, hey, what your preferred deal structure is, or maybe a tax tip that you have to kind of share that you researched and found, to share that with the group. Because one of the big things that I love with just being able to save on the taxes and having the right CPA. My guy Larry does a phenomenal job. One of the things that I was able to tap in years ago, and I found out about it, and I fired my other CPA. This had to be, I think that was 16, I think 17, but is the real estate tax profession, not real estate tax profession, real estate professional designation. So you can look that one up. But essentially, if you spend at least 750 hours a year working in real estate, whether it's property management, fix and flip, running your business, whatever it is, 750 hours a year, now you're able to take that depreciation. I talked about all those hundreds of thousands of dollars of loss that you have the first year. You're able to take those losses and apply it to any ordinary income. And so one of the things that you can do, that it can be you or it can be your spouse. And so that was one of the cool things with my wife not working, that we were able to get her that designation because she was managing the contractors, talking with everything, moving the fix and flip projects, the property management. So she was getting the 750 hours a year where she can be the tax real estate professional in our household and wipe out my W-2 income for my day job working active duty Air Force, and which tremendously helps with saving on taxes and being able to just continue to build wealth. And so that's one with the real estate professional. I encourage you guys to look at. Maybe that's something that you can do, or maybe your spouse can do, that now is just going to set you up for supercharging everything you're doing with your investments, because you're able to save so much on taxes. But that's something you do. You definitely want to talk with your CPA. I'm not a tax professional. I'm just sharing information on how I've been able to leverage and use it. But you definitely want to talk with a CPA with doing that. And continue. We're wrapping up. We're in week 6. We got 2 more weeks left. And I'm super excited about this. So continue to participate We're going to have some cool prizes for those with the most points that saved up at the end of the 8 weeks. So definitely continue to participate and racking up those points. And doing that, you guys know where you can get your Millionaire Wealth Blueprint download inside of the group, and the live sessions where we are tonight. And I'll leave it open for a couple questions. For those maybe in the Orlando area, I'm gonna be down in Orlando speaking at the Military Creators Conference next week. I think the 15th and 16th, and then we'll be in Fort Walton Beach at the very end of the month for the Vision Leadership Summit. I'm super excited about that. So if you're looking for like a summit to kind of kick off the new year, and you're a leader in your space, then definitely check out that event. It's going to be a 3-day event there in Fort Walton Beach, right there on the Gulf of Mexico. So it should be a good time. And that's going to be the 30th of January through the 1st of February. And this weekend, we got the Locked In Conference virtually, 1 day virtual, a lot of different topics, great speakers. And that'll be happening this Saturday. So a lot of things that is going on, continue to go on. And and we're going to be open enrollment for my inner circle. That's going to kick off here the next couple of weeks. And so that'll be happening, kicking off the first week in February. We're going to lock in for the next quarter. We're going through with this next cohort. So if you're interested, I won't say interested is not the right word. If you're committed to investing in real estate, getting that next deal going, I encourage you guys to book the consultation call. Let's have a conversation to see what your goals are, and let's go and let's make them happen together. And so with that, I'll stay on for a couple of minutes and answer any questions that anyone may have. Oh yeah,
Johnny,
and we just dropped. Thanks, Faye. She just dropped the link to book your consultation call there in the comments. Cool.
Chris.
Oh, cool. What's up, Chris?
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good, man. How's the new year treating you?
Pretty good. Just kind of getting back on track, right? Getting out of the holiday mode and lining up goals that I want to achieve this year. So, yeah. How about you?
For sure.
I see your son in the background.
Yeah, he was over here harassing me the last 10 minutes.
He's ready to go.
Right. He needs to be in bed. They're out of school again. That's 3 snow days in a row. So we're kind of still in holiday mode in my house.
Wow. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So
but I see your question here. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask, of course, from what you said, everything is held in an LLC. However, would it be wise? Is it a good idea or is it a bad idea to hold multifamily properties in a trust, whether land trust or any other type of trust? The reason I thought about it is because you brought up divorce, right? So if someone got a divorce, one of your partners, and something happens, the waters get muddy real quick, right?
Yes. True statement. No, that's a great question. And the answer is yes. And so one of the things that the trust is a asset protection entity or vehicle, if you will. And so one of the things with that you oppose in the LLC with the bank, but you can do a quiet title after it and move that entity into a trust post-closing. So the bank won't give your trust a loan and mortgage, but they'll give your LLC a loan, and it's nothing that prevents you for asset protection for moving the ownership or title to that property into that land trust or into your revocable trust that you own and control. And so, and then when you go to refinance it, you would just pull it out the trust and then go through, do your actions, and then you can put it back in there and do that. So no, great question. But yeah, you definitely want to look at, that's kind of that next level with having the trust and with the asset protection and kind of give you that next step away just for people to have to give you that anonymity and being able to, the ability to kind of just shelter off and kind of partition those different assets that you own.
Agreed. Yeah, asset protection is very important. We just went through that this last year and put everything in trust. So yeah, a lot of work. It's not simple.
Yep. For sure.
But yeah, thanks. Because of course we want to protect everything. We want that continuity in management. So if something happens to me or any other of my partners, everybody still gets paid, right? Everything still happens. Nothing stops essentially.
Yep.
So awesome. Yeah, that was the only question.
Great question.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Had a great chat with Faye the other, a couple of weeks ago, right before the holiday. Touched base with her, and she gave me a couple of pointers that I'm going to be. I've already started a couple of videos. I'm not there yet to post them yet, but working on some video, working on some content creation, putting some of those ducks in a row. There's a lot to do this year. There's a lot to do this year. Oh yeah.
It definitely is, and I'll tell you, with you want to prioritize, and you want to make sure that you're spending the time on the right things. Don't get caught up in a lot of the distractions, or like the low return on your value in regards to that ROI, that return on investment. That we talk about it a lot for just the properties, but you want to look at your ROI for the time that you're spending as well too. Whereas that make sure that, hey, those things that you're hitting, that making sure that the return on that time is going to be well spent, like, hey, getting that next deal, or making that partnership that's going to lead to the next deal. And I'll tell you, with the social media piece, that it's fine, because guess what? Everybody's not going to see it, and by the time you start getting your followers, you start getting all 1,000 followers, you're going to be a pro at that point by then. So that's the thing. Like, I encourage you, like, they kind of got me out of my bubble with being more consistent. Like, you know what? Only like 2% of your friends on social media are going to even see it. And after an hour, 2 hours, it's going to be gone away and disappear anyway. So we'll put it out there and do it, even if you mess up, because you'll save so much time by not trying to go in and edit and make it perfect and everything. It's like, man, just post it and put it out there. And, don't put that pressure on yourself. Yeah, don't put that pressure on yourself.
Okay.
And anybody that's judging you, guess what? Like, hey, well, what are you doing?
True. There's not a lot of folks that are pushing. That's for sure. There's not a lot of folks who have vision. No, it's weird trying to have conversations. Like, we went out this Saturday with my wife. We got together with a couple of friends and family, and we're just having a great time, and just meeting other people, and just that mindset, that vision. It's so hard to meet. It's so hard to meet other folks like that. So I'm grateful for this group and for everything that you're doing for us. So, yeah.
Yep. No, for sure. No, I'm excited for you, man.
Yeah. This year it's time to put in that consistency, and see what we can get at the end of the year, right?
Yep. That's it. That's it. I see Michael said iron sharpens iron. That's facts.
Yes, sir.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or anything? Cool. Well, awesome. Well, no, I definitely look forward to seeing the videos and responses in the chat, and engaging and interacting with everybody. And yeah, let us know, myself, Faye. Let us know if you guys have any questions, anything that comes up. And we will see you guys next week. And we'll be back on Tuesdays now for the next few weeks. So awesome. You guys be blessed. And look forward to seeing you next week.
Good night, guys.
Thank you. Good night,
everyone.
Thank you so much.